Okay, so now we're going to work on the hair. When I work with dark hair, I always use my Copic markers from the C series, the Cool Gray series. My lightest color will be C3, then C5, C7, and C9 is my darkest. I work with 4 colors to get a really nice shading effect. So I'm going to start with my lightest color. And how I work is I just sort of add it where I think it's going to be darkest. So I'm adding my lightest color where I think it's going to be the darkest, where I need the darkest shading. That gives me a good sort of base on which to work on. I'm not going to add too much, just enough so I can get a feel of where I want to go next. So that's my C3. Next I'm going to take my C5, and I'm pretty well going to cover up most of what I just did. My C5. So you'll notice that I'm sort of leaving a band in the center. That's going to be where my highlight is going to be. And if you work with just the tip of your marker, you won't lay in as much ink. You've got pretty small space here, so you don't want to add so much ink that it's going to start migrating past your lines. Okay, so that's my C5. Now my C7. So I'm working almost up to where my C5 was, but not quite. There we go. Along the side of the face is generally a bit darker. One here. Now, usually when I color, I turn my images to make it a little easier for me to get into all the nooks and crannies, but that'll probably be a little difficult for you to watch, so I'm going to try really hard not to move it. Alright. Next is my darkest color, which is C9. And that just goes right at the edge. And you can see this is pretty dark. I don't use the black when I color dark hair. I just find it's just too harsh. So the C9 is really the darkest color that I'll use. Okay, maybe a little bit more here. Okay, so then we're going to work in reverse. I'm going to take my C7 and blend out my lines, working towards the center. Okay, then C5. Okay, and then finally the C3. And now you're going to start to see the highlight happening. Okay. You'll notice that as you use the C3, it's actually pushing the color, the darker color, pushing it away. And that's how you're able to get such a nice soft blend. Okay, so there's the hair. The last thing I do is I tidy up a little bit. Anywhere where I got some ink that went where I don't want it, I push it with my colorless blender. There we go, so that's the hair.